In this daily drop, I'm going to give you my viewpoints on the current state of camera, lighting, and audio technology. So let's go. Okay, everybody, back in the barn for another week of content, and I am busy here. Behind this backdrop is a lot of equipment that I've set up, and I've been doing some testing here. Some of that will come into play with this week's episodes of the Daily Drop, and I'm excited to share that with you. And I also felt like it would be a good time to sort of summarize my thoughts when it comes to the current state of camera, lighting, and audio technology. There have been some big advancements recently, especially in the lighting space. And I think that right now we are at a place, and I've talked about this a little bit before, where depending on the equipment purchases that you have personally made and the equipment purchases that you are considering making, that we are at a point now where, depending on what type of production you're doing, it's almost hard to argue that you'll need anything else for the near future when it comes to each one of those categories: cameras, lighting, and audio technology. Now, there are always exceptions, and there's a reason that cameras like the Alexa 35, the Venice 2, the Alexa LF, and high-end digital cinema cameras exist on the market. Part of that are the feature sets of the cameras and their workflow. Part of it also has to do with the support of the companies that are making that equipment. But when we're talking about day in, day out production in the corporate, small to no crew, documentary space, even with things like tabletop and small commercial production, music videos, all of these different categories, I would say that at this point in time, again, depending on the equipment purchases you've made or considering making in the near future, that we have kind of hit a plateau to a degree. There's always something else. The grass is always greener. There's always going to be better equipment with that 1 or 2 or 3 features that are going to make the difference for you potentially. If it's going to change your workflow, it's going to save you time, it's going to produce a much better result, I get it. But if you take a look at those 3 categories, cameras, lighting, and audio, my goodness, we have come a long way. Let's talk about audio. Most of the devices that are coming to market now have 32-bit float recording. And a lot of the devices have quiet preamps and are built well and have a very long life ahead of them. I have a MixPre 6 II, which has 32-bit float recording. It has some quote-unquote machine learning AI technology in it for noise assist. It's listening to the space and can automatically, depending on my settings, reduce the ambient noise. But that's not just true of sound devices. There are other companies making excellent audio equipment for capturing audio. On top of that, the microphone market, even though those 70s and 80s microphones are still amazing, there have been new mics that have come to market that are also excellent. Some of them reproductions of older mics, some of them new mics with new technology. But I would say that in the audio space right now, we've got it pretty darn good. All right, we'll go to cameras and then we'll come back to lighting. Cameras, my goodness. Whether you're looking for a mirrorless camera, an FX30, a PYXIS, you're looking at a lower-end Fujifilm camera, you're looking at a lower-end Canon camera, or you move up in the mirrorless space to R5 Cs and FX3s and cameras like that, or Fujifilm X-H2Ss, the mirrorless space is pretty darn good. Almost every camera that's coming to market, even in the sub $1,000 range, has 10-bit 422 capture capabilities. Almost all of them now, if not all, have log recording. And then if you move up the ladder just a little bit, we start to get into cameras that have even greater possibilities in terms of capturing images. Open gate. You know, we have the ability to capture not only log, but in some cameras raw. There's just so much flexibility. And then we hit that around $5,000 US price point, and we start to get into the C80s and the FX6s and things like that. And my goodness, the KOMODOs, right, from RØDE, what is going on here? And then we move just a little bit higher into cameras like the Canon EOS C400, the FX9, which will inevitably have a Mark II at some point or another. And that sub $10,000 camera space right now is pretty remarkable in terms of the choices and the things that we have available to us. We know that feature films can be shot, episodic television can be shot with a lot of these cameras, almost all of them. And if you start to take a look at that, you know, the C400 or the FX9, the capabilities are, again, remarkable in terms of the feature sets that are in those cameras for around $10,000, $7,500. You even go into that $5,000 to $6,000 price range with your, again, FX6s and C80s, and it's pretty amazing what is available on the market right now. You jump to those higher end cameras, and yes, they're there for a reason. Those, again, Alexa 35s, Venice 2s, and things like that. But we've never had it better, and it really comes down to your knowledge of tech and craft at this point in terms of what you can and can't do with these. And unless you need something that is capturing at an insane resolution. Let's take a look at that Blackmagic 17K sensor in a medium format sensor size. Well, I can see a camera like that being a great match for something like creating content for the Sphere in Las Vegas, right? We're talking about large venue projection, and that's where certain cameras are going to be specialty cameras that may have application that day in, day out production wouldn't need, but the choices are just enormous, and we haven't had it any better. And I've talked a little bit about this in past episodes. All right, last category for today is lighting. That space is changing and changing rapidly. We, of course, have had LED fixtures on the market and being used in production for years and years and years now. I guess we're sort of moving into the decade plus range when it comes to that kind of stuff. We're going to get close to decades soon. I can't remember when that first light panels light that I got was, but I'm going to say that, you know, we're going to hit that 20-year mark with LED technology pretty soon, but it's really just in the last 2 to 3 years where I'm seeing huge leaps. There were individual companies that were making contributions to the advancement of LED technology, like Hive very early on, that were really taking that approach to creating light with LEDs to another level. But in the last 2 to 3 years, we're seeing that happen with a lot of different companies. So we take a look at Nangwang with their RGB ACL fixtures, right, under Nanlux, and one particular fixture under Nanlite. And then we take a look at ARRI and a lot of other companies that are doing RGB ACL. But now we're seeing another leap. And this is the leap that once competition comes in and we start to see the next round of fixtures from lighting companies, the leap that Aputure just made with the Blair engine and the Blair plus CG engine for full color tunable light is remarkable. And what's really interesting is their approach to that is, let's create fixtures that are the best white light LED fixtures that we can make at this time. And yes, the technology will get better, but we've just seen, I think, a big leap forward, because what we're really trying to do is we're trying to create lights that are able to reproduce white light as accurately as possible, so that when that is reflected off of our captured objects, subject matter, what have you, that the cameras that are traditionally designed to capture reflected light from things like quartz halogen fixtures and HMIs and things like that, that the cameras are going to see an accurate representation of especially daylight and what we call tungsten light now, are in that 3200 Kelvin range. And then there's projected light. Of course, we want to see accurate reflected light and color being captured by the cameras accurately. But when we're talking about projected light, that's where fixtures like the new Storm 80C and the 1000C come in, because that Blair plus CG engine is really designed to create the most accurate projected light when it comes to color, and still accurate in terms of white light, projected and reflected light. But it's very important that we're also advancing in color projection. That's something for another episode. But what does this all mean? Well, it all means that right now, if you're making the right choices when it comes to equipment for the types of productions that you're doing, the types of work that you're doing, that there's very little reason, if you're making the right choices, for you to have to go out and in a year buy additional equipment. We have come to a point, I believe, where in the next year to 2 years, you'd be hard pressed to, if you've purchased equipment recently, to upgrade right away. There's always going to be something else. They're going to build new AI features into these devices. There's going to be something I'm not thinking about that's going to go into cameras or lighting or audio equipment that I haven't thought about. But most of this stuff from the crystal ball standpoint is pretty easy to see. We want to see NDs in mirrorless cameras. We want 32-bit float recording in our cameras, I think. And we want the competitors who are seeing what's happening with LED technology to do things that are similar, maybe not exactly the same. I'm sure there's patents and all kinds of things that are going to prevent certain companies from doing the exact same thing. But I think that once we start to see these new light fixtures on the market, that other companies are going to compete and catch up with that as well. We all win. It's a great situation. All I'm trying to say is right now, the grass isn't necessarily that much greener on the other side if you're making the right choices. That's kind of what this channel is about. It's not a review channel. It's not what should you buy, but it's about focusing on how to use these tools in terms of tech and craft. And we've got it so good right now. All right, there we go. It's really going to be about that tech and craft if you've got the right equipment in hand, and most of us do. Don't forget to, and I'll see you on the next episode of The Daily Drop.